Hello everybody and welcome to Asgard, coming back with another movie review. And so I think that I'm going to start making more random movie reviews for the Welcome to Asgard channel and let my Odin's movie blog channel be more focused on pop culture or bigger movie reviews that I can actually connect to the pop culture as well. Though of course, who knows at this point what's going to happen and what video is going to be posted. The fact is I wanted to make a video about this because I literally just finished watching Dumbo for the first time. And to be honest, I can understand why this film did not make a whole lot at the box office and also why it did not get that great as far as, reviews from overall critics and even its audience score. So I see for the Metascore, 51 out of 100 versus 5.9 out of user, meaning that's a very, very close connection. Both audiences and critics seem to be in line with how they feel about this film. And to me, first and foremost, let me talk about the positives, because there are a couple of positive elements that I can point out, and that first of which is Danny DeVito. I think that Danny DeVito is one of my favorite actors working in Hollywood today, just for the length of time he's been in Hollywood, all the different types of roles that he's played, but also just how much charm he brings to every single character, even characters that are not necessarily the good guy, not necessarily the most popular person. He's able to bring so much character and so much life to them, and I can always truly appreciate that. And of course, we also need to talk about Tim Burton, and Tim Burton has always had a decent eye when it comes to color, when it comes to just the overall palette that a film has in the production design. And I think that once again, you really do see a film that feels like a Tim Burton film, which can both be a good thing and can also be a bad thing as well. That's pretty much it when it comes to the positives of this film, because everything else about it just comes across as campy, unnecessary, and over CGI'd is pretty much the best way to describe it. So obviously when you're dealing with Dumbo, when you're dealing with an elephant that has giant ears and can eventually fly, you're going to have to use some elements of CGI for those types of moments, for those types of creatures. And I would say for the elephants in general, it was pretty much assumed that you're going to have those be CGI elements throughout the entirety of the film with the various things they want to try and do with them. But once again, we find ourselves in a situation where Disney focuses so much more on trying to make them look so realistic and act realistic when it comes to elephants that I feel like they really do miss the mark. It reminds me a lot of The Lion King, where The Lion King, it focused on that same element, trying to make them look lifelike and realistic, but then you ended up losing the soul. You ended up losing the heart of the characters. And I felt the same exact way here, because just like with Lion King, you have creatures on this screen that are being portrayed, and so people are, they're trying to make it look as a real life elephant as much as possible. But by doing that, you sacrifice that cartoonish nature of the story that allows for a lot more emotion to be shown. It shows for a lot more depth to be brought to these characters, and it really is almost like you're missing part of the characters in a lot of ways. Even though you have no lines spoken by the mother in the original, even though you have no lines spoken by various characters in the original, because you can't have that cartoonish reality of being able to add emotions that do not and would not exist in a clear capacity in a live action with actual real life elephants. Again, it feels like you were almost taking away some element of the story in the end just because you want to try and make things look great. The biggest reason why I have a problem with the CGI, though, is that almost everything in this movie was shot on a big screen, or rather shot on a green screen. There aren't a whole lot of practical effects other than the actual real-life actors in there. It seems that most of the sets are completely CGI from the very opening train sequence when they're going through the countryside, the train itself, everything. It looks so fake. It looks so CGI. And yes, CGI can look really very realistic, and we've obviously taken, giant leaps and bounds when it comes to the CGI technology that exists today. But because from the very beginning you're thinking to yourself, okay, so everything is going to be CGI, not just the elephants, it kind of just cheapens it just a little bit, because it makes you realize, oh, they didn't want to spend the extra time and attention on actually going to location. They did not want to take the extra time and attention to try and have certain elements, certain animals, certain things like that be a part of the story. And I think that might be also the reason why they decide to take the story in the direction that they end up going in, where at the very end, again, this might be a spoiler, but obviously if you've seen Dumbo before, you know that some of these things happen where Dumbo, all of a sudden, all the animals of this specific circus are said to be free. There's no longer going to be a caging of any animals, which when you have animals that are not domesticated animals and cannot be domesticated, or at least not commonly domesticated, that creates a lot of problems. Now, am I saying that you need to abuse animals? Hell no. But obviously, cages themselves are not going to be abusive if you treat the animal in a certain capacity. So I'm kind of wondering if there were some messaging they were trying to send with this film, if they were trying to reach out to certain audience members, possibly paid involvement. I have honestly no idea. But it really just came across as being, okay, so now I have to watching all these CGI CGI animals that just don't look realistic and just look bad, and now you're going to say that they're going to be free. It's like, I think it would have been a lot more effective had they used actual animals. So of course with the elephants that would be a little bit trickier, but with other things, like for example, there's a monkey character featured throughout. Why can't you not just have a monkey that's trained? Now, the reason why is because they were like, oh, well, we don't want to use any live action animals in this film because that's kind of the message of the film, is to not cage and to not use and abuse these animals. And I can respect that message. However, you're also telling the story about animals and still portraying animals on screen. And so the trade-off is you don't get that realistic portrayal, and also you're left with this CGI hollow shell that really just takes away from the story and really just takes away from the impact of the story. And of course, you don't have that musical element that existed in the first film. Now, of course, they couldn't have the Jim Crow, cartoons that they had in the original movie, because obviously that would be kind of towing that line of race and racism, etc. Even though I think in the original film, if you look at it within its proper context, it's not meant to be specifically a racist an aspect. Rather, I think it was mostly just them kind of playing on these various characters with these various names and everything. But that's something that they could have done without, and they did without. And overall, they decided to turn Michael Keaton into the main big bad guy. And overall, I thought he played the character just fine, but he played it in that over-the-top capacity, which is something that's very common in Tim Burton films. So if you're a Tim Burton fan, if you like his over-the-top stuff, if you like crazy CGI, even if it's not very good, this might be the movie for you. But I'd say for most audiences, as you can tell from both critics and audience scores here, this is a film that you can skip. This is a film that I don't think is really worth seeing, and it makes a lot of sense as to why this film did not make much of the box office and why it's not really selling that well on DVD, Blu-ray, etc. Because Dumbo is a classic animated story that I'm going to continue to watch as a classic animated story and never have the intention to watch this one again, because why would I want to watch Colin Farrell give a really bad accent, give a really bad, cringeworthy accent that I don't even think he knew what kind of accent he was trying to go throughout the entire film, but also just a story that is bland color palette and also really poor CGI. So overall, I'm going to give this film a C-. I think that, obviously I'm going to give kudos to people like Danny DeVito. I'm going to give kudos to the art department in general, because it is impressive that they were able to get these creatures to look as lifelike as they could, including to the point of having it look, as best as possible, of combining the live action scenes that they're in with the live actors there with the CGI images. But with that being said, as we all know, CGI can only go so far. It's always going to be able to be just not real enough. And if you're going to have that be the focus, that we want to be hyper realistic, and you're still having that problem of not being able to cross that line of having it be realistic, I just don't think it's really worth making. And it once again adds to that question as to why are these live action remakes being made. And I would say a good rule of thumb for Disney going forward would be stop making live action remakes of movies that feature animals. Yes, you've shown that you can do a very cool job of making the animals look realistic in a CGI format, but the problem is that you can't show the same emotion from an animal in a live action movie than you can in an animated movie. And since you're already animating the creatures in the first place, why are you going to try and make them look hyper realistic when all that you do is handicap yourself from being able to show anything else, especially when it comes to the wide range of emotions that many of these characters showed in their original animated forms. But guys, what are y'all's thoughts about this? Have you seen the 2019 Dumbo? Do you have any desire to see the 2019 Dumbo? I would say it's one that's definitely worth skipping, but also too, this adds to, I think, the evidence of why Disney needs to stop doing this, why we need to stop supporting Disney doing this, and how it's not until we start to take a stand, like what people did with Dumbo. I think it's morally because Dumbo was not nearly as well received as others and not nearly as pushed as others, probably because Tim Burton was a part of it and not more of a mainstream personality. But we need to start stepping up because, again, is it the worst movie I've ever seen? Is it a terrible movie? No. There's some moments in there where I'm like, okay, that's kind of nice. But in the end of the day, it's a total waste. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, smash the like button, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.